Hi, and welcome to Sarah and Mike's Best Picture podcast. I'm Michael Cole, and this is episode number 29. This week we'll be talking about 1953's From Here to Eternity. The film is directed by Fred Zinnemann and starred Burt Lancaster, Montgomery Clift, Deborah Kerr, Donna Reed, and Frank Sinatra. It won Oscars for Best Picture, Best Actor in a Supporting Role for Sinatra, Best Actress in a Supporting Role for Donna Reed, Best Director, Best Writing Screenplay, Best Cinematography Black and White, Best Sound Recording, and Best Film Editing. It was also nominated for Best Actor in a Leading Role for Montgomery Clift and Burt Lancaster, Best Actress in a Leading Role for Deborah Kerr, Best Costume Design Black and White, and Best Music Scoring of a Dramatic or Comedy Picture. It beat out for the Oscar for Best Picture Julius Caesar, Roman Holiday, Shane, and The Robe. With me, as always, is my wife and co-host, Sarah.
Hello.
So what'd you think of From Here to Eternity?
It was good. It wasn't my favorite, but there were parts of it that I really liked.
Yeah. It was... wasn't my favorite, but it was probably the most engaged I've been. Like, the most I've been, like, wanting to know what happened. And, like, maybe Gone with the Wind. And, you know, part of that's because I remember Casablanca, and some of the other movies didn't have as much, like... you don't know how it's gonna happen. Yeah. But, I really liked it. I was kind of surprised because I remembered it as being a little more of a romantic movie, and there is like romance in it, but I didn't remember how much there was, focus on the military stuff.
Yeah.
So basically, the concept of this movie is the plot of this movie is that Montgomery Clift plays a soldier in the army, I'm pretty sure they say, who is transferred from one platoon to another platoon in Hawaii, and he's sent there because as he describes it, he requested to be transferred because in his previous platoon he was the number one trumpeter, and he by merit, and then someone came in that was close to the commanding officer, and they were placed in the number one spot, and so he wanted to leave because the other person wasn't as good as him. So when he comes to this one, they all want him to start boxing because they have a boxing team, and he apparently was also a very good boxer. So he doesn't want to box, and they don't explain why at first. They just, they say, it's clear that somebody got hurt beyond, in the previous boxing thing, but they don't explain at first what the details are. And so because he refuses to box, the whole company decides that they're going to make life miserable for him until he agrees. So he gets like double duties on, drills where, he's got 2 packs or extra boots in his pack, and has to do twice the distance, and he's going up a mountain and with these drills, and so they're making it as hard for him as possible. Could you chew louder? Our dog's here chewing on her bone. Sorry. It's literally been impossible for us to record without any distraction. This is like our 3rd attempt at recording, so just bear that in mind, please.
Hopefully you can't hear it that much.
Probably. Hopefully. That's why it's taken 2 weeks. We actually watched the movie like a week and a half ago. We were actually going on time, and we have not been able to record, so we're just recording regardless of the chewing in the background. So they, they're driving him crazy, and finally we find out that the reason why he doesn't want to box is because he was boxing with somebody and he made them blind. Um, and the and so that's the character played by Montgomery Clift. One of the commanding officers, the second in command, is Burt Lancaster, and he's a little more sympathetic, and he gives him a weekend off and things like that to try to like keep his spirits up. And Frank Sinatra plays basically his best friend, in the one that's helps, talks back a little bit in his honor, and ends up getting stuck on some of the same drills as him, and so it's most of the movie is that, but then when they show them on their weekends off and stuff, they go into town, and you see Montgomery Clift goes with Frank Sinatra to what I would say is probably supposed to be a brothel, but it's like through the filter of we can't show a brothel in an early 50s movie, so it's like a dance club, but they pay for entrance, and then they can kind of like sneak off to like little private areas with the girls that are paid to be there to entertain them. And so I think you understood that as the same thing, right? It's like a brothel, right?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. It's not just me. Okay. So that's where Montgomery Clift meets the character played by Donna Reed. Donna Reed you probably would recognize as George Bailey's wife in It's a Wonderful Life. Which is funny because I think of her as like, in that movie, as being like, not old, but like she's, she plays at least, 40 or late 30s. And in this movie, she seems so young. And this is like 10 years after that movie was made. Like, so it's just kind of funny. So she plays one of the women that works at the brothel, and her and Montgomery Clift fall in love. But she's at first hesitant because she doesn't want to get her hopes up, basically, that he'll either get shipped away or that he'll change his mind. And the whole time that's going on, you've got Burt Lancaster is seeing Deborah Kerr's character, and she is his commanding officer's wife. And so that actually was surprising that they were showing the affair and all the stuff that was going on with the affair.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they do... I've noticed every time they show an affair in one of these movies, and, like, with the main characters that you're supposed to feel fine about, what they do to, like, to make it fine is, oh, well, he had an affair first. Like,
yeah.
And so it's like revenge affair is okay.
Or she was, like, left by herself.
Yeah, well, yeah, but even in this case, like, the reason...
Like, they're always, like, I feel like they always, like, portrays them as, like, kind of abandoned, or...
True, but they also have, like, there seems to be, like, the need to also to explicitly be like, well, he had an affair, so now I'm having an affair.
Yeah.
And that's probably because of the Hays Code with, like, in order to show morality, like, positive morality, it's probably like, you can't show the hero having the first affair. It has to be like, well, I was cheated on, so now I feel like, I think that was somewhat, which is surprising even still, like, that they're like, that there's this idea that we could, like, instead of just, oh, you suck it up and you move on. Back then, it seems like that would have been the mentality, but apparently they're allowed to show this as long as there's this, preemptive affair. Mm-hmm. So Frank Sinatra and Donna Reed both won Oscars for this, and Frank Sinatra is amazing in this movie, and he's got that, like, level of charm and defiance that you kind of expect from Frank Sinatra, but I don't think that, like, it doesn't feel like he's playing himself at all, right?
Yeah, no, not at all.
It feels like they just knew exactly what to do with him. And I was telling you before, the character of Vince Fontaine, no, not Vince Fontaine, that's Grease. Johnny Fontaine from The Godfather. When we'll talk about obviously in the future, but he's the crooner that The Godfather smacks and tells him to stop crying, and then they get him the job, and that's where the whole Hollywood part comes in. That's supposed to be based on this movie and Frank Sinatra specifically. I don't know that. I don't know that there's a. I don't know that there's a that Frank Sinatra had any issues getting this job, but like the idea, like he says in the movie, the part's basically written for me, and they say it'll win me an Oscar, and so there's like all these things that are similar to that. All right, we'll move on to the next subject because I'm losing.
I thought the saddest part was, like when that soldier that had kind of like abandoned the military after. This is kind of jumping ahead a lot, but he like gets in the knife fight and then he stays at like kind of like his girlfriend's house for a while, and it's like almost like he's like abandoned the military, or they're saying like if he doesn't come back in a certain amount of days that they'll have considered him to like have deserted them.
Yeah.
And then she's like, please don't go back, and he's like, I have to, I'm a soldier.
Yeah.
And then like
I
that's
think
like when Pearl Harbor strikes, and
yeah,
that part was so sad. Like like I don't know.
Well, first they kind of, everyone thinks that he abandoned, but he's the one thing he's been really consistent about the whole movie is that he loves the army. The army was his first place he felt home, and he wants to serve, and so like he hasn't abandoned. The problem is he got stabbed in a knife fight, and so he's basically being nursed. And it's like one of those situations where you can't go to the hospital because they'll know you're the guy who killed the other guy.
Yeah.
So he needs to be healed, and then. Well, it was interesting, the Pearl Harbor part, because we assumed that this was sometime in the area of World War II, and we know it's in Hawaii, but we didn't know if this was going to be, we didn't know what was going to happen as far as like time frame wise. Yeah. And so the whole last 25 minutes of the movie is Pearl Harbor and them dealing with Pearl Harbor. And I thought they did really well with that. I thought it was, they cinematography wise and acting and action, it was really impressive how well they did. And I would imagine some of it is probably intercut with like newsreel footage, but it was really good, and it really shows his commitment, like because he's a man of ethics, and like. That's kind of, it's probably not as explicit as they may be intended for it, but he won't fight in box. He won't box because he doesn't want to hurt another person just for fun. It's different. He has this moral code where he won't box, but he'll go fight for the country, and he doesn't mind the idea of being in the military, and so there's a morality to that he has a very strong moral code. And when Pearl Harbor, when the attacks start happening, he goes and he not only risks his own life, but he ends up losing his life because he's trying to get back to do the right thing, and because he's been gone and he's trying to sneak back in to help take care of people in his base. They assume that he's an enemy, and they kill him, and it's tragic the way it happens, because he is a man of steadfast morality, and he's really trying to be a good person the whole movie, and like there really isn't any way in which he isn't that. He's really nice to his girlfriend. He drinks a little too much. That's his one vice, is that he drinks too much. But he's willing to go through torture for his morality, and then eventually he's willing to die for his morality. And I think that he is an amazing character. And his name this is Montgomery Clift's character, and it's the character's name is Robert E. Lee Pruitt. And he's really, I think, I was surprised at the level of moral strength and nuance that they put into the character.
Yeah, and you had talked about, I think, I'm not sure if you've gone over this, but one of those really famous scenes with them on the beach and everything, and some of the discussions they had were I thought some of the best parts of the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, the scene that you're probably familiar with from this movie is the couple making out on the beach and the water coming up and over them in black and white. That's from this movie. That is Burt Lancaster and Deborah Kerr sneaking off to presumably to have sex on the beach. Although it's more like making out what they show, obviously. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that there was a level of plausible deniability when it came to the censors being like, no, they're just kissing. But I think that literally every single character, every actor in it was amazing. Personally, this is one of the this is probably, wasn't one of my favorite, but it was probably one of the best movies we've watched. I can't think of a flaw in it. Yeah. Something else that's interesting that I didn't mention last time with The Greatest Show on Earth is, you're probably familiar with the fact that body types have changed in the last 100 years. In The Greatest Show on Earth, one of the trapeze artist guys, we see a six-pack for the first time. Usually these are guys who are very barrel-shaped, or also there's a lot more shirtlessness in the last two movies than for guys than there has been in the previous movies, and we're starting to see something a little more, and it's not really sexual. It's very purpose oriented. Like in that one, it's obviously a trapeze artist just has a pair of tight pants on to be able to do his job. In this one, it's they're going swimming, or they're Pruitt is digging a ditch, and there's lots of six packs, and it's very different body structure than we're used to seeing. In one of the movies, either It Happened One Night or Mutiny on the Bounty, we see Big Ears, what's his name? Clark Gable without a shirt on, and it is a skinny boy body, and in this we're seeing six packs and muscles, and in order to be a trapeze artist, you probably have to have some kind of physique like that, and in this Pruitt's running up a mountain a couple times a day, and he's digging ditches. He's literally, the ditch that he digs is grave length. Now I believe, and I could be wrong on this, but I'll look it up, but I believe Montgomery Clift was a method actor, so he probably did a significant amount. I know that I read that he learned the trumpet for the one scene where he plays trumpet, and
that's cool.
I believe they dub over it anyway, but
I also
I want to
like that there was a little bit of like humor in the movie as well. Like
yeah.
when all the guys are like in the like they're like dorm, I guess. I don't know the right word.
Yeah.
But like where they sleep and change and all that. They're like getting ready to be able to go out. And one of the guys is like left behind and it took him longer to change. And the commanding officer comes around the corner and he's like, all right, you're in charge. You're going to be on guard for the next 12 hours. And he's like, what? It's not my turn, and he like, but it's kind of playful. And he's like, well, you should have gotten dressed faster.
Yeah.
I thought that was good and not like forced or cheesy.
Right.
Like it fit.
Right. I think that they did it. There was a lot of realism in the dialogue in this movie. It was the farthest departure from that, like, stilted conversation that we talk about, like, a lot. And, like, I don't remember any examples in this movie of, like, of anybody being like, oh, Brad, or anything like that. Like, there are, like, drama moments, but it's not through, like, there's dramatic dialogue or melodramatic dialogue, but it's not through tone, it's through content, as which it was interesting. I wanted to talk about the Burt or Montgomery Clift. So he's supposed to be a trumpeter, like we said at the beginning. Basically, Frank Sinatra's character is beaten to death while in not the brig, in the stocks, I think is what they. He's beaten to death, which kind of comes after a whole bunch of things. Conflicts with the head of the stocks, which is played by Ernest Borgnine, and Burt Lancaster. We've been told that he's supposed to be this amazing trumpeter, and we haven't seen him play the trumpet at all. And then he plays the I don't know, is it called the reveille or whatever? It would be the sad funeral music.
Oh yeah.
He plays that, and not only do we get to hear, and it is very sad and very well played, but we also get to see the men of the company, sitting in the stairs looking, sad. And it's probably my favorite scene as far as, like, how it was filmed. Like, you see everybody in their different roles pausing and looking, downtrodden because in a lot of ways Frank Sinatra's character is he's the life of the party, and he's the spirit of of their group. And so, you're seeing them mourn that, and they did an amazing job of mixing the music with this montage of people kind of pausing and reflecting.
Yeah.
And without dialogue. And it was incredible. One thing we talked about, you and I talked about before recording, or in one of our previous recordings, was this movie. I don't think it needed to be color. I don't think we missed much, but the Hawaii stuff could have been really cool with color. I don't think it really detracts from the movie. I just think, there are some scenes where it will, like, you'd be like, oh, like the beach scene, I think even is fine in black and white, but, like, the water, like the scene right before it would have been nice with the, like, seeing the water lapping up in that, like, crystal blue that we're used to seeing in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm. And I bet back then too, like, not that Hawaii is polluted, but it seems like
yeah, if you look, what's the Elvis?
It would have been like more untouched or like less built up and all that.
I've never seen the movie, but have you ever seen any clips from that Elvis movie in Hawaii? Like, it's in Technicolor. Like, if you had mixed that color cinematography with this, I think it could have been a little bit better in that way. But I don't think it detracts. I think it just could have been. It could have. I think it would. I think this movie is good enough that it will hold people's attention, but I think that for those people who are like, I don't like black and white, this could have easily translated to color and not had had any issues.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There wasn't a whole lot of trivia that I found on this movie. I think it kind of went over everything that Montgomery Clift played he learned how to play the trumpet for it. I don't think there was much beyond that. So I think we'll make it like a short episode. Do you have anything to add real quick, or are you done?
No, just I thought, I feel like I've said it, but the Pearl Harbor stuff was like super sad.
Yeah, and really well done.
Yeah,
like
and it was almost like they were just about to like have like a kind of like a happy ending almost, and then that happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And really, nobody.
And a lot of them were talking about.
Gets a happy
a lot of
ending
them were
in this
talking
movie.
about going back to the U.S.
Yeah. Well, so Deborah Kerr and Donna Reed are both basically going back. Donna Reed's done after Montgomery Clift's character dies. She doesn't want to be there anymore. And Deborah Kerr's character, her husband is getting shipped out, basically because of.
Yeah.
I think he's been told to resign so that he won't be court-martialed. I think, if I remember correctly. And so he has some kind of business to try to fall back on mainland, and that's kind of surprising. I think. Because I think that ultimately, she was hoping to leave him for Burt Lancaster's character, but I think that Burt Lancaster's character is in love with her, but ultimately, I think the loss, it just has taken its toll, and with the fact that we're all of a sudden plunged into World War II, I think that he's more focused on that than on this love that he's found.
Yeah.
And so she leaves kind of heartbroken, and Donna Reed leaves fully heartbroken. Both Montgomery Clift's character and Frank Sinatra's characters are dead, and Burt Lancaster is kind of... We're assuming he's going to lead a group into, I would imagine, into Japan or into that side of the war. I would imagine anybody that was stationed in Hawaii is probably going to fight them and not the Germans or Italians. But
yeah, definitely.
I mean, especially because you couldn't. I'm taking a picture of the dog. You couldn't just fly from one side of the. It's not like now where if you're in Hawaii and you need to get to Europe, it's 15, 16 hours or whatever. Maybe it's 20 hours, but like back then it was probably a matter of putting them on a boat and shipping them around the world. So it makes more sense to put them in Japan, I'm sure. But all right, so that was. From Here to Eternity. Next week we already have it, so we hopefully won't be late, but I can't imagine that we're going to actually have a nice uninterrupted session to record. But we will be we'll be watching and talking to you about On the Waterfront, starring Marlon Brando.
I've seen this one, actually.
You've seen On the Waterfront?
This is the first one I've seen, yeah.
That's surprising.
I've seen the whole thing.
You hadn't seen Casablanca before?
Nope.
Oh. Well, I've seen this one also, so this will be interesting then for us to talk about it. We should have already watched the movie and we could have done a double session right now. But we will figure it out and we'll record. Hopefully, you'll get another episode very, very shortly, but it should be no more than 2 weeks. So if you do want to check out any of our other stuff, you can go to chocolatediamondmedia.com. You can also check out, we've got a couple of short films that have been getting some really nice praise and viewership on YouTube at youtube.com/chocodiamonds08. And we might be doing a new Get out of there. We might be doing a new podcast. It won't be we. It'll be me and someone else might be doing a new podcast in a few weeks in addition to this. I know it probably sounds like I'm taking on too much, but the problem that Sarah and I have is that I can go record or she can go record. It's finding time where we can both go record that is difficult. So, that's what you have when you have a 2-year-old and a dog, and when you have life, it's hard for a couple to get together and do, stuff like this. So, we will talk to you hopefully next week, but definitely in the next couple weeks with On the Waterfront.